Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Founder Built podcast with your host, Jaden and I. Today, we have a super interesting episode for you guys. There's been breaking news that OpenAI is looking to leave their partnership with Microsoft in order to get more security, more efficiency from their data centers as well. I've been checking it out. Seems like a really cool idea. Jaden, have you checked it out at all? You got anything to say, any insights?
Yeah, no, I think this is a crazy story because OpenAI and Microsoft have been really tied together more than any other company in this AI space for quite a while. And I think the big thing is like Microsoft was the first to go and put $10 billion into OpenAI. And with that $10 billion investment, they bought like 50% of the company. So this was kind of right after ChatGPT launched and before it was like totally parabolical. OpenAI was like super thrilled. Now they've since raised a ton of money from a bunch of different people. Most recently, they raised, $6 billion. So this is actually, sorry, I don't think Microsoft put in $10 billion. I might be wrong. They might have put in at a $10 billion valuation. I'll double check that. So it might have been $1 billion. Am I wrong? Where were they at on that? Anyways, okay. So Microsoft put in a ton of money and OpenAI sold half the company essentially to Microsoft. And so if they're moving away from this partnership with Microsoft, that is huge news, especially when it's to one of their competitors, Oracle. And they literally are saying that Microsoft isn't moving fast enough to supply them with servers. And this is the reason why they're having to do this. So to me, this is an absolutely fascinating story. And if you really want to like understand the relationship with OpenAI and Microsoft better, you have to know that, okay, I was correct. Microsoft total, so they did invest $10 billion, but they'd invested a billion before and they've invested a little bit of follow-on. So total, Microsoft has invested $13.75 billion into OpenAI. And with that, OpenAI is going to do a 20% revenue share of all the revenue they make back to Microsoft. But they said it's only up to $92 billion. That's kind of where it caps out. In subsequent funding rounds, like OpenAI just raised $6 billion more dollars. And when they did that, they essentially, their investors were like, look, we're not doing your stupid profit cap thing on your revenue. We want it to be unlimited. So OpenAI raised the money. They switched from being a nonprofit and a really convoluted structure to they're just a regular for-profit company now. And there is no revenue cap. So anyways, all this to say, Microsoft sort of had a weird deal with them. And it seems like even for all of that, OpenAI is walking away with them. Do you think this is? Do you think there should be any sort of loyalty between OpenAI and Microsoft? Or you just think this is a cutthroat world of AI and they should just hop in with the best company?
I think that the world of AI is absolutely cutthroat. Moreover, I think that Sam Altman is a little bit of a cutthroat genius, or might I say an opportunist, if you might say. But yeah, it really comes, as you mentioned as well, comes from a partnership with Oracle. They're actually running data centers out of Texas, which is really cool as well. But back to the loyalty thing, I mean, obviously their investment of $13 billion was a huge amount, especially in the early stages. However, a lot of people have money in the world, and if you can't hold our servers, can't hold the amount of data that we're able to record, where we're able to kind of reinform or create a reinforced learning cycle with our models, kind of using that data to continuously build up our newest models. I think it absolutely makes sense, and I don't think that they really should give them too much loyalty when it comes to something like data and processing as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting. So with everything that's getting shooken up right now, people are wondering, like, is OpenAI going to leave Microsoft out of some of their bigger data center plans? Because they've been talking for a while, like we've covered this essentially, I don't know, leaks or discussions where both Microsoft and OpenAI have talked about this sort of huge facility. It's going to be $100 billion, superconductor server cluster. Microsoft has codenamed it Mercury. OpenAI talks about it and calls it Stargate. So like there are these big projects they've been talking about for a long time, and it's interesting to see if Microsoft really is shifting over. And they recently just signed a deal to rent servers from Oracle at their new facility or at their data facility in Texas. Like how that shakes up if Microsoft's going to get cut out of future stuff. So I think this is really interesting. But I tend to agree with you that overall, go with whatever company is gonna do the best. I mean, I think you sort of have a fiduciary duty to your organization and your investors. What's interesting though is like when one of your investors that owns or did own half the company is Microsoft, Microsoft, I'm sure, is like, you owe a duty to us, right? So I think it's kind of interesting. Right now, in this whole deal with Oracle, they're going to lease the entire data center site, which is quite fascinating to me, right? Like, you can imagine Oracle probably had some other clients or other people in there. Okay, the whole thing's going to OpenAI. They said it's going to eventually grow to 2 gigawatts if Oracle is able to access more power. This brings up a whole nother conversation, which is these data centers, we can throw them up, but there's they have to get their power from the grid, from the town that they come in, and there's limited power in a lot of these places. So we recently saw Microsoft do a deal where they put billions of dollars into buying 100% of the power from an old decommissioned nuclear power plant. And they're like, just get this thing back online. We need it to run our data centers. It's interesting because the bottleneck at the beginning of this whole kind of AI craze, the bottleneck seemed to be the GPUs from NVIDIA. Now I feel like beyond that, it's moving to like, we don't even have enough electricity to power the data centers for these. So it's just so fascinating, some of the challenges that people are facing.
Yeah, I know there was an infographic going around on LinkedIn that for every like conversation that you had, full-on conversation that you had, the average duration of like, I think it's a minute or something like that with a ChatGPT conversation, like takes up like 4 pieces of paper or something like that, in the same way that like the carbon footprint or whatever. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I remember when I was in school that they were kind of cutting back on the paper and then we were going digital, and there was like the teachers would open up their Google platforms their Google platforms, Google site, and it would have like the amount of energy or carbon neutral footprint saved by printing out or by not printing out papers, which is pretty awesome. Another thing that I am just reading on as well is that even if this partnership goes down into the tube, the Microsoft OpenAI partnership will still be accessible for both firms. So Microsoft can use OpenAI's technology, and OpenAI will still be paying Microsoft to run its AI business, whatever it may be in the partnership as well. So even though Microsoft has their 365 or whatever, which is very clearly run off of OpenAI's products, I think it's interesting that that model will kind of still play out. And even though if the partnership dies or if it dims down a little bit, that both of them will still have a large piece of the pie in the other's company as well.
100%. One thing that I do think is kind of funny about all of this, so like you mentioned, they're very intertwined. Like Microsoft is still making 20% of all the revenues, up to $92 billion from OpenAI. OpenAI is not getting anywhere close to $92 billion right now. I think it's like maybe like 5 or 6 billion a year that they're doing. So Microsoft is still going to be making a good chunk of change for a while. And likewise, OpenAI is making 20% revenue share on Microsoft Azure is selling OpenAI service API access on their platform, on the Azure platform, and they're paying 20% to OpenAI. I mean, obviously, this is OpenAI's model, but it stands to reason that OpenAI could have trained a model, given it to Microsoft, stuck it on their servers. They're essentially managing the API. They're managing everything to do with the model, and they're just getting more eyeballs, more users on it, and OpenAI is making money. So they're both making money from each other. There definitely is a partnership. What's funny to me is when people are talking about like if OpenAI should be exclusive with Microsoft or not, yada, yada. It's funny because OpenAI has a completely different tune with its investors. They're recently in the $6 billion round that they raised, they told their investors that came in like, hey, we don't want you investing in any other AI startups. And they specifically outlined like Perplexity and XAI and all these other players. And it's interesting because people really are looking at some of these other players like XAI as a big threat, which is interesting because I feel like XAI of all of them hasn't really, I mean, they're embedded into Grok on Twitter. So like, yes, there's a bunch of people using it, but like, I don't know, you feel like Anthropic and Claude are like way more used or at least talked about. What's interesting though is with all of this, is that Elon Musk right now has just started talking publicly about the fact that XAI has just created one of the largest clusters of NVIDIA AI chips in the entire world. This is so fascinating to me because we have the companies that he's competing with, right, are essentially like OpenAI, Anthropic, these companies that have raised billions of dollars. They've been around for like years. XAI got spun up like last year, and it's already about to build out one of the biggest superclusters, or GPU clusters. So the question becomes like, will they dominate in AI because of this? OpenAI and Anthropic, they're all trying to make all these partnerships with all these other people, but there's some of their rivals that it's like, oh, they don't have the distribution yet. Well, if they have more GPUs, like sometimes it's theoretically, you could speculate it's only a matter of time before the products are so much better that that essentially they can beat this. The utility company alone on this project said that XAI is going to have access to 50 megawatts of power, enough to only enough for about 50,000 of their chips. But as they start getting more of that, they're going to get an extra 150 megawatts, which is going to be enough for 100,000 of the chips. It seems like XAI and some of their other competitors are scaling very quickly. So to me, this is really fascinating to see how the battle in AI, it's not just about, oh, who's got the best software, the best model. It's like, yeah, but who has the best data centers? Who has the most access to electricity? Like, it gets down to some very fundamental like resources to build the models, which is kind of an interesting aspect to me.
Yeah, I think it's also really, really interesting. I know we've mentioned it on a couple episodes by now, but Elon Musk was actually a co-founder of the original OpenAI team, and he decided to leave when he figured out that the actions and the roles in which they were taking did not align with their non-profit kind of company title. And I think the most interesting thing is that Elon has access to one of the largest data pools of all time. So I feel like when he's able to get the GPU processing power, which he clearly just has with NVIDIA, upload the kind of, or build that data into a knowledge base, I think it kind of just comes down to how he plans to use that model. Because obviously, I mean, ChatGPT is great at certain things. For me personally, I use it now strictly just for the GPTs and trying to test out the new models. But there's stuff like Claude that comes in and they completely bang out the coding section or the math section or the undergraduate level knowledge section. And I feel like Elon could maybe twist it a little bit to where he uses and adapts it to more the human side and uses and utilizes some of that data that they've been building up for the past, 40 years on Twitter, or 20 years, something like that. So it's really interesting. And I think that they will probably be emerging within the next 2 years or next year as one of the main players for the LLM models for sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The last thing I wanted to bring up on this is a quote from the information that says OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, for instance, has told some Microsoft executives that he's concerned that XAI would soon have access to a computing power that OpenAI does not have. So this is fascinating to me. They're all really concerned about where this goes. We will definitely keep you updated on all of it. This is a really interesting time to be in AI. I think there's going to be a lot of big moves made for these companies to try to push far ahead of their competitors. We'll keep you up to date on all of it. If you enjoyed the episode today, as always, we would really, really appreciate a review on the podcast. We're trying to grow the reviews on the podcast so we can bring on some incredible guests to share their insights with you. And so reviews are a great way to help us do that. So if you enjoyed the episode, we'd really appreciate a review. We hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, and we will catch you all next time.